Hi, my name is Elizabeth Blandon, and we're here with the Blandon Law video to help explain the provisional waiver process. The provisional waiver process is a very big deal, and people are hearing about it, but they have many questions, and I hope this video answers some of those questions for you. The reason it's a big deal is because at the end of the process, a green card is mailed to our clients. These are people who either entered without authorization, have been here for many years, or have a deportation order. So it's a very exciting moment when they receive that green card in the mail. Before they receive that green card, though, there's something that needs to be said. There will be an interview outside the United States for our clients. They probably will have to spend about 3 weeks because of other things that have to be done in addition to going to the interview. But the point is, don't be fooled when someone says to you, oh no, there will be no interview. Definitely in the provisional waiver process, the last step is that there's an interview, a visa is put in your passport, and then with that visa you return to the United States. Obviously you would not be going to the interview unless we know that you'll be able to return, or the chances are very high that you'll be able to return. And the reason you know you're going to be returning is because the provisional waiver has been granted. Now, the reason this is news is because before, people couldn't go back. If you've been here without authorization for 6 months and you leave the country, you couldn't come back for 3 years. And if you had been here without authorization for 1 year or more and you left the country, you couldn't come back in for 10 years. Being here without authorization counts as every day that you're here without some type of permission. So it's not the entering necessarily that was the bad thing. The bad thing is that once you enter, every day in the US is a day without authorization. The process begins, to understand how the process begins to eventually get you to that green card, it begins with a petition. It can either be a petition from your family member, or it can be a petition by an employer, and that's key. There are several categories for getting a green card through the provisional waiver with an employer, but I'm going to speak a little bit in detail about the types of petitions that can get you a green card. What kind of family relationships can get you a green card? Now, if the person petitioning, sending the application on your behalf is a US citizen, they can send it for a parent, so you would be the parent, foreign national would be the parent, the spouse, or the child under 21 years of age. Those cases are the ones that move the fastest. There are other cases, however, that are also eligible for a green card, and it is a US citizen petitioning a sibling or petitioning a married child, whether under or over 21, and also petitioning a child over 21, whether single or not. In all these cases, not only does the sibling or the child come to the United States, but also all their family members do as well, the spouse and all their children under 21. There are other cases, though, other petitions that can be filed, other applications, and those are for people who are legal permanent residents. So they're not citizens in the United States yet themselves, but they can file an application on behalf of certain family members. They can apply for their spouse, for their minor children, and also for their children over 21, so long as those children are unmarried. I put single, but it's just unmarried. It could even be divorced after divorce. Okay? If the child over 21 is married, then the petitioner has to become a US citizen. They can't just stay as a resident, they have to become a citizen. Okay? So these are a few examples of what the family relationships are that will get someone to a green card. Once the Citizenship and Immigration Service approves the petition, it sends it to a place called the National Visa Center, which is located in New Hampshire. Depending on the type of relationship, the National Visa Center will either immediately continue processing or will only accept fees and will wait for the next phase, which is for the priority date to become current. Now, what does that mean? The importance that it's transferred to the National Visa Center has two consequences. Number one, it means that the affidavit of support will not need to be provided until many years. What's the affidavit of support? Well, that's the form that includes the tax returns for the petitioner. So sometimes people will say, oh, I don't want to file a petition for my family member because my taxes aren't very good. Realize you won't have to send in your taxes maybe for many years. So go ahead, file the petition, let it be approved, let it go to the National Visa Center, and then if and when your taxes are needed, your attorney will let you know. But it will be in some cases many, many years. The second reason why it's important to know what happens at the National Visa Center is because when the case is transferred there, the priority date must become current. And as it will take many years to know when the priority date becomes current, it's important to be working with an experienced and ethical immigration attorney who will be tracking that on your behalf and then letting you know when it's time to get the next step for the green card. Now, what is a priority date? It's a date that is on the receipt of the petition. So when the application was initially filed by your family member, there's on the receipt it'll say this is the priority date. And every month, the Department of State issues a visa bulletin that says, okay, these are the cases we're working on, and this is the priority dates we're working on. So attorneys, like ours at Blandon Law, have methods to track and make sure that your case is or is not eligible for the next step. In addition to paying the fees with the National Visa Center, you also will need to send a visa application sent digitally and other civil documents like birth certificate or marriage certificates. Again, that's a very important part of the case, that if anything is done incorrectly, the case will end there and all the time before will have been wasted. So in addition to sending the fees to the National Visa Center, civil documents will have to be sent, marriage certificates and birth certificates depending on the type of application. And also a visa application will have to be digitally uploaded. So you'll definitely need attorney help for that to make sure that it's all done properly. The provisional waiver, though, the central part of what this video is about, is an application that's made to immigration. It's a request. It's a respectful request that immigration, as a favor to the U.S. citizen or resident, spouse, or parent, allow the foreign national to stay in the United States rather than going abroad. The reason it's very important to have a good attorney working with you is because as anyone who's ever made a request for any reason, even to an employer for a day off, you might understand that the better the request is made and the more documents, the greater the likelihood that you'll win it. So because it's so important to make this request properly, with the right wording and the right documents, it's important to hire an attorney who's very good at it. The average right now for winning on provisional waivers is about 60 to 70%, but with some attorneys, the percentage can be up to 90–95%, and that's how it is here at Blandon Law. Because we work with a lot of effort with our clients to tell them exactly what documents they need to provide. In general terms, we can tell you that we'll need documents indicating the medical condition of the U.S. citizen or resident, spouse or parent, their financial situation, and maybe their mental situation if there's anything unusual. If they've ever had therapy, we would want those records. But in consultations, we'd be able to absolutely specify what would work best in each and every case. Now, who's eligible? Here's where it gets interesting and where information is not so well known. Everyone knows, for example, that the spouse or the parent of the U.S. citizen, of the foreign national has to be either a U.S. citizen or a resident. But people say, well, what if I don't have a spouse or a parent who's a U.S. citizen or a resident? Well, then we have to go into step 2, which might make the case take a little longer, but it'll still get you to your green card. So let's say you have a spouse, right? That person's not a U.S. citizen or a resident, but you have a U.S. citizen adult child who can file an application for your spouse. And when that application is approved, your spouse will become a resident. Okay, so let me just let that one sink in there. If you have a child who's over 21 years of age, they may not be able to apply for you because of the way you came in or for other reasons, but they might be able to make your spouse a resident, okay, and then you'd be eligible. The other one is a parent. So, okay, your parent might be back in your home country and is not a resident, has never shown any interest in becoming a resident. In this case, however, you might have a U.S. citizen brother or sister who is the child of your parent. And if that's the case, then your sibling would be able to petition for your parent and your parent would be able to become a resident, and then you'd be able to become a resident yourself through the provisional waiver process. So a few extra steps, but it'll still get you to the green card. In another situation, there's also some extra steps, and that's for someone who has a deportation order in the United States. It used to be that provisional waivers did not apply for anyone who had a deportation order. If you have a removal order, there are many ways that we may be able to help you. One of the easiest one is by filing a waiver known as an I-212 waiver, and in a consultation we'll be able to explain with a little bit more detail if that applies to you. But there are other ways of handling the case too that might be best to your advantage. Since there's so much information here, and I'm sure you have more questions as this video goes along, please know that this is not the end of it. This is only the beginning of the provisional waiver information. We provide detailed information as to how and when and what exactly should be done for a provisional waiver in your specific matter in a consultation. And in addition, for those persons who come to a consultation or receive a consultation over the phone, we also provide a free handbook that provides even more information and answers the most common questions on provisional waiver. We hope this has been of great value to you, and I look forward to opening the door to your success.